It's March 11th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the ongoing mass walkouts by doctors. The government is now sending military and public doctors to hospitals nationwide to alleviate the disruptions caused by doctors' absences at hospitals. While some professors at medical schools are also considering taking collective action. 1 out of 3 foreign visitors to South Korea have turned out to be aged 30 or younger. Data shows the rise in the number of younger tourists comes from their interest in K-content like K-pop and Korean food. South Korean national football team captain Heung-min scored his 14th goal of the season in Tottenham Hotspur's 4-0 win over Aston Villa and added 2 more assists in Sunday's victory. We now enter the 4th week of the doctors' walkout, which means patients are still left without their doctors. And to provide much-needed care, military and public doctors will now be dispatched to private hospitals nationwide. Our Kim Jong-sil searches us off.
The massive collective walkout by trainee doctors has now entered its 4th week. On Sunday, Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong announced plans to maintain the number of doctors amid the health service disruption.
We will also ensure the emergency care system is fully operational. We will dispatch 20 military doctors and 138 public health doctors to 20 hospitals for 4 weeks starting March 11th.
He added the government will swiftly use the nearly 130 billion won of reserves, roughly $100 million decided last week. The reserves are to support emergency on-call labor costs for medical personnel and help hospitals recruit medical staff during this time. The government also will increase compensation for doctors in essential medical care fields. This is because general practitioners are paid less due to the country's health insurance system, where fees for essential medical care are often set too low, according to the doctors. Regarding the government pilot project that began last month to give nurses the authority to practice partial medical procedures, the minister disagreed that it created the risk of illegal medical services.
The pilot project is intended to protect the public health while clarifying the scope of work so that nurses can focus on protecting patients without worrying about other things.
Meanwhile, professors of Seoul National University College of Medicine, the country's top medical school, will hold an emergency meeting later on Monday. The professors will likely discuss the current situation and come up with ideas on whether to engage in a collective resignation. South Korea has one of the lowest doctor-to-patient ratios in the OECD, with specialist doctors such as plastic surgeons and dermatologists some of the highest paid. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
A North Korean diplomatic delegation led by Vice Foreign Minister Park Myung-ho took off for Mongolia over the weekend. The meeting is the first of its kind since the start of the pandemic nearly 4 years ago. We turn to Bruce Klinger for more. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, North Korean delegation taking off to Mongolia. What significance does that trip by the North's delegation carry?
North Korea has slowly been opening its borders after the COVID crisis, allowing some visitors in. And this diplomatic mission is to affirm the importance of relations between North Korea and Mongolia. Mongolia has traditionally been a close supporter, a close diplomatic contact with North Korea. So we've seen in recent weeks or recent months, North Korea has been affirming its relations with China, with Russia, and now with Mongolia. So it's a way of building its friendships. But at the same time, North Korea has been closing down a number of its overseas embassies, likely because they were no longer able to provide funding for their own operations, as well as illicit activities, which is then sent back to the North Korean regime.
Right, so widening its circle, but that's also in line with how European embassies in the North that left the regime due to the pandemic are gearing up to make a return to the North, right?
Right. So as North Korea is slowly opening its borders, it's been allowing several groups of Russian tourists to come in, and now it's allowing the foreign diplomats who left during the COVID crisis to come back to Pyongyang to begin preparations for reopening those missions. So it's sort of North Korea is one of the last countries, I think, to reopen its borders after the COVID crisis.
Right, and also UN officials are making a comeback to the regime. Would you say the North is ready to receive the much-needed aid now, then?
We'll have to see. During COVID and even before that, the U.S., South Korea, and international organizations were offering assistance to North Korea, and the regime rejected it. South Korea offered rice, and the U.S. offered COVID assistance and COVID vaccines, and the international organizations also offered that, and North Korea rejected that. So I think it's still a little bit up in the air as to how much North Korea will be opening to these international organizations, or how receptive it'll be for aid, even though it would, greatly assist the North Korean people.
Definitely. Now, in the meantime, South Korea and the U.S. have been carrying out their joint military drill since last week. And I have to point out, unlike last year, the North hasn't really staged any major military provocations, which is a good news. But why do you think the case is the case now?
Well, we've seen a bit of a mixed reaction. On the one hand, North Korea hasn't done provocative exercises very close to the DMZ or their northern limit line as they have in the last 2 years. And they've said that their military is too busy engaging in construction projects. Now, on the other hand, they are engaged in their annual winter training cycle, which usually runs from December through March, which doesn't get a lot of publicity. Everyone tends to blame the U.S. and South Korea for military exercises, but ignores the annual North Korean exercise. But also, in the last few days, North Korea has engaged in a very large artillery and multiple rocket launcher firing demonstration, but it was, I think, 50 kilometers or so back from the DMZ. So it wasn't provocative in the sense of looking like it might lead to an attack on the South. But many of us still think that this year is going to be a bumpy year, that we may see increased provocations by North Korea sometime during the year. And South Korean officials told me privately that they can't rule out another tactical deadly attack, as we saw twice in 2010.
Right, especially ahead of the big elections coming up, both for South Korea and the U.S. Now, instead, the leader Kim Jong-un was seen taking a shooting position with a rifle last week and ordering that practical, actual war training be intensified. Would you say it's a downgraded show of discontent over the joint drills?
Well, as I said, we've seen large-scale artillery exercises, and those were really, I think, more of a demonstration of military power rather than exercising actual war plans. The way they lined up the artillery, sort of, hubcap to hubcap, is not how you would use them in war. They'd be very easy targets for Allied forces. But I think it's a way of showing North Korean power, the Kim Jong-un's power, and the North Korean defiance of the international community. And then, of course, when Kim goes to these military units and fires rifles and other activity, it's a way of showing that he's the military leader and that his own strength. So that's, I think, a demonstration for the internal North Korean audience.
Right. Before I let you go, last Friday, Seoul's Unification Ministry announced 3 major tasks for the year. What's noticeably different about this year is the ministry's statement about letting the world know about the reality of North Korea. What does this say about the Unification Ministry's plan to deal with North Korea issues for the rest of the year?
Well, talking about the real nature of the North Korean regime is a continuation of how the Yoon administration has resumed criticism of North Korea's terrible human rights conditions and violations of international norms of behavior, but also in response to North Korea's statements earlier this year that unification is now really a dead issue or a dead dream, that the two Koreas can't really reconcile and as a single entity. So now South Korea has sort of abandoned the previous federation or confederation ideas and will be focusing more on having a liberal democracy in a unified Korea. And that's consistent with Article 4 of the South Korean Constitution, where a unified Korea should be based on the principles of freedom and democracy.
Definitely. All right. Thank you, as always, for your insight. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
More and more young people from around the world are visiting South Korea. And it's the Korean way, from music to food, that is attracting them. Our Lee Seung-jae with this report.
From K-pop idols BTS and Blackpink to Korea's Oscar-winning Parasite and Netflix smash hit series Squid Game, and even tteokbokki and kimbap, the growing love for Korea's music, entertainment, food, and culture have led to a huge increase in the flow of younger tourists coming into the country. According to the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute on Monday, a survey conducted on 4,000 foreign travelers who visited South Korea between October and December last year showed that over 31% became interested in traveling to the country after encountering Korean wave content. And the variety of foods appearing in Korean movies and dramas has led to more and more people from around the globe becoming interested in Korean food outside of the usual bibimbap or Korean barbecue. Data from the Korea Tourism Organization on Monday also showed that visitors to South Korea are getting younger thanks to the growing interest in the Korean wave. Among the over 11 million foreign visitors who arrived in South Korea in 2023, 35.6% of them were under the age of 30. More specifically, those aged 21 to 30 accounted for 25.3%, or 2.79 million people, while those aged 20 or younger accounted for 10.3%, or 1.14 million people. The proportion of foreign visitors under the age of 30 stood at 27.6% in 2013, an 8.1 percentage point jump from 10 years earlier. And to cater to the growing number of younger visitors to the country, the Culture Ministry, alongside the Korea Tourism Organization, are looking to bring even more foreign travelers into the country by targeting those interested in esports and K-beauty. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And Coca-Cola has a perfect example of how the Korean wave has stolen the hearts of people around the world. The brand has released its newest limited edition drink called K-Wave, which is already making a splash with pre-order reservations doubling those of its previous limited editions. Our Heung-min reports.
Ever tasted Hallyu, or the Korean wave? Well, now you can, thanks to Coca-Cola's latest limited edition drink, the Coca-Cola Zero Sugar K-Wave. Drawing inspiration from K-pop, the company says its flavor will help consumers relive what it calls the excitement they felt when they first became a K-pop fan.
I can feel that big companies are definitely paying a lot of attention to the Korean market and the K-pop scene and how much their influence has risen.
What also stands out is the brand's logo in Korean at the center of the can. For the first time in its century-long history, Coca-Cola has incorporated another language into its logo. Why is this?
The growing global fascination with Korean content and artists has reshaped how we see the Korean writing system, turning it into a sought-after design element. In the past, using Korean was a challenge for global brands due to its uniqueness. However, as Korean became more familiar, the language now strikes a perfect balance between distinctive charm and universal appeal.
And Coca-Cola is not the only one to incorporate Korean in its logos and packaging. This Korean food company previously had an English-only logo, but introduced Korean into its branding this year. Another trend observed in the K-Wave Coke is the rise of K-pop stars as models for food and beverage brands. Coca-Cola's K-Wave's launch campaign featured groups Stray Kids, ITZY, and NMIX. McDonald's recently collaborated with New Jeans, and Daesang Group's kimchi brand Jongga partnered with the 17-member Hoshi.
I think after the success of BTS, K-pop fans started to want to know more about their artists' cultural backgrounds, like what they buy or eat, not just their songs. Brands are capitalizing on this curiosity, selecting K-pop artists to represent their products globally, so that they can connect with a broader audience.
As K-content continues to attract overseas consumers and the market expands, expect to see more Korean language and artists taking the spotlight. 송유진, Arirang News.
South Korean national football team captain Heung-min scored and was named player of the match in Tottenham Hotspur's 4-0 win over Aston Villa at Villa Park in the Premier League on Sunday. Spurs cut the gap to the fourth-place Champions League qualification spot against Villa to 2 points with 4 second-half goals, including one from Son in the stoppage time. The 31-year-old South Korean also chipped in with 2 assists to bring his Premier League tally for the season to 14 goals and 8 assists. As the volume of overseas purchases increases, concerns about the influx of harmful items such as counterfeit goods and drugs are also growing. The Korea Customs Service plans to enhance the efficiency and accuracy of customs duties by introducing AI and innovative technologies. Chung Eun-ju has the details.
Packages from overseas pass through X-ray security checkpoints. If an object is detected that differs from the cargo information on the import declaration form, a red line appears on the screen immediately. This integrated video search technology utilizing AI is scheduled to be used in the field from 2026 after development is completed by the end of next year.
With the recent boom in e-commerce, there has been a significant increase in items imported through direct shipping. AI assists workers in customs duties, making it easier and more accurate to scan.
AI technology is also utilized in security areas. A CCTV system to be introduced at Incheon International Airport starting this year can selectively track potential criminals among the multitude of travelers in real time. It can also recognize items that individuals possess, thereby preventing smuggling and other crimes.
When travelers designated as potential offenders, based on penalized information, enter the customs entry point, their faces will be recognized and stored on the server.
By utilizing big data consisting of over 70 items such as exporting countries and importers, AI is used to predict high-risk cargo and generate various training material for X-ray interpretation. As cross-border purchases surged to 120 million last year and brought the issue of crime-related imports to the forefront of societal concern, the South Korean government's response using AI technology is also continuing to progress. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Ji-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin today with the 2024 Oscars, where the winners are being announced as I speak. The 96th Academy Awards is taking place at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood, Los Angeles, hosted this year by Jimmy Kimmel. Director Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which has already swept other major film awards, is expected to win many of its 13 Oscar nominations. Oppenheimer's nominations include Best Picture, Best Actor for Cillian Murphy, and Best Supporting Actress for Emily Blunt. Barbie, last year's biggest hit at the box office, has 8 nominations, and Past Lives has been nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay. The annual Oscars are nominated and voted on by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences across 20 categories. Moving over to Indonesia, where floods and landslides in the country's West Sumatra province has left at least 19 dead, while 7 are still missing. Indonesia's rescue agency reported on Sunday that some 80,000 people in the Pesisir Selatan district of West Sumatra have been evacuated to temporary government shelters, while 150 rescuers have been drafted in for additional support. The head of the local search and rescue agency said most severe damage was seen in the southern coastal area. The area affected has seen several days of torrential rain. Now to India, where exiled Tibetans residing in the country took to the streets on Sunday to protest against Chinese occupancy of their homeland. large crowds of protesters gathered in New Delhi and in the northern town of Dharamsala to commemorate National Tibetan Uprising Day on March 10th. Protesters were seen marching with flags, banners and slogans with raised voices against the Chinese oppression. One protester said they were demonstrating in India because Tibetans in Tibet cannot, while another dragged a poster of Chinese President Xi Jinping through the streets tied to his vehicle. This year also marks 65 years since the Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, was exiled from Tibet. China has ruled Tibet since its army invaded the region in 1950. And finally to Lebanon, where the 4-month lion cub was found and taken into care by an animal charity in its capital Beirut on Saturday. The baby lion's owner had reported it stolen or lost earlier in the week. However, a post on social media showed a man with a chained lion cub, prompting urgent action from police and animal rights activists. Authorities handed the 4-month cub to animal rights group Animals Lebanon, which will care for it before securing a sanctuary for the animal. Since the adoption of an animal protection law in 2017, keeping wild animals in captivity is a criminal act in Lebanon.
Good morning. We had picture-perfect weather on Sunday afternoon under clear blue skies. And now the new week is kicking off under cloudy conditions with rain in the forecast. Rain will start this afternoon from Jeju and Jeolla-do Provinces before gradually spreading to the rest of the southern regions as the day goes on today. Then it will rain in central regions late tonight and will continue through Tuesday. Further south will receive heavier rainfall with snow in the forecast for mountainous regions in Gangwon-do Province. Meanwhile, central parts of the country will see just spotty rain. Spring is still well underway with wide temperature swings between lows and highs. Those in Gyeongju especially could have gaps of more than 15 degrees Celsius today. Seoul gets up to 11 degrees. Gwangju and Daegu top out at 13 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Decent air quality expected nationwide today. This round of wet weather will bring spring warmth to the country. Highs will reach the mid-teens as the week goes on under brighter skies. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.